Today at Future of Consumer Marketing, I have the coolest guest I've ever had, Hage, founder of Lab Coffee. I think the hottest coffee brand in Berlin. It's so good that even Kanye West is having a taste of it.
Germany is the largest market in Europe for coffee, and 50% of Germans drink coffee on a daily basis. If you like that person, if you like that adventure, if you like that sports, you immediately think of Red Bull because they sponsor your favorite person. First store I built myself. I should never do that again.
How the hell did you manage to land Kanye West? Like, what's the story there? Ralph, it's amazing to see you. Big question. How common are coffee dates as a first date?
Not in my own store. I'm not allowed. My team doesn't let me. Yeah. But coffee dates are the easiest way to get to know a person. And I think this is partially one of the reasons why I started this business. I think being an extremely social person by nature and being very relationship driven in business, it was a no-brainer to end up in a business like Lab. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about Lab in a second, but maybe walk us through your personal story about how you actually ended up starting. I think this is now your second business. You were born and raised in Lebanon. How did you end up in Berlin? Yeah. In fact, I've started many businesses in the past and most of them failed. But in Germany,
every good entrepreneur.
And we'll get to that. But in Germany, this is, I would say, officially my second founding experience, so my second business. A little bit about my background. I was born in Beirut, a beautiful place, amazing culture.
You promised to take me there at time.
I will take you there, I promise. Unfortunately, not the best time. But we will do that, and hopefully with a big group of friends. Great place, but offers limited opportunities. And early on, as much as I loved my country, I realized that there are big opportunities and ambitions that I can pursue elsewhere. And that led me on the last, on the expedition of the last 20 years.
It's crazy.
And this took me on a journey all over the world. So I lived and worked in places like the US, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. I started initially working for Red Bull. In fact, my first job was actually washing cars, which probably no one knows. But officially my first job was working for Red Bull. And from there, I went into finance, worked in places. So
energy and caffeine and taurine was kind of your first, and hopefully now with Lab, your last job, yeah?
Red Bull is one of the businesses that inspired me, or one of the brands that inspired me the most growing up. And maybe that's why it didn't feel so natural to be in the finance industry for too long. But I lived and worked in places like Dubai, Singapore, Shanghai, in New York. Yeah. And ultimately in New York, I realized that's not really what I wanted to do for a living. And, ever since I left my job, founded my first tech company, which failed, it was a fintech business. I ended up basically staying very close to the startup industry. Yeah. And that's how I ended up in Berlin, building and scaling F&B consumer businesses for the last 15 years.
When did you move to Berlin?
7 years ago.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So you're, I think the rule of thumb is if you've been here for longer than 5 years, you're actually a local. But talking about your time at Red Bull, what function did you do there? And what's kind of the secret sauce of the company? Because a lot of things that they touch are just turning to gold. And obviously, they're the OGs of marketing in a way. So what's it like to work there from the inside?
Absolutely. And I think Red Bull was one of the pioneers of the marketing industry. I think what they brought forward to the market is an approach that very few people touched and understood back in the day. And I think that made it the company that it was, because ultimately what that product is simply something you put on the shelf, which is an energy drink that was discovered originally in Thailand, brought to Europe, and needed to be marketed in a way that people would understand it. Actually very similar to the story of coffee, because coffee has a beautiful history traveling through different geographies and ultimately, coming into Europe and being introduced to customers here. And today, coffee, similarly to energy drinks, is one of the most consumed. Well, coffee is the second most consumed product globally after water. Yeah. And this is an insanely massive market where there's big opportunities to build. But the question, going back to Red Bull, is how can you differentiate in a market that many people consider to be extremely competitive and even obsolete, where you there's not much innovation that you can do there because you've seen it all. And I think taking a chapter of what Red Bull has done, which is being a media company, an entertainment business, rather than an energy drink, is basically what made this business the massive success.
So in a way, they're in the business of selling energy drinks, but they do it in a very, very different way by basically associating themselves with some of the coolest athletes, sports clubs, like action things, and I think redefining and almost like disassociating the product from what they do on the marketing side, right?
In reality, these guys understand human nature, and what they're selling you is the excitement and the adventure and the possibility of being entertained. And that's why you buy the product ultimately, right? And how they break it down into different verticals of sports, of culture, of events, of sponsorships, of certain teams, of touching certain celebrities and creators and football players or any sports that they're in today, is if you like that person, if you like that adventure, if you like that sports, you immediately think of Red Bull because they sponsor your favorite person.
Yeah.
And that's how I think Red Bull, in a way, started changing the entire, what I call market of culture marketing today, is bringing people into the mix rather than, if you look maybe 34 years before that, it was mostly primarily about the product itself.
But now that you spell it out, I see so many parallels, between Red Bull and what you're doing with Lab Coffee, that it's almost like very obvious. But maybe taking a step back, what's the idea behind Lab? Like, why? I mean, there's probably millions of people waking up in the morning and say, I want to open up a restaurant or coffee shop, but you had different ambition levels. And what was kind of the unique insight when you decided to get into this market?
Yeah, very good question. And what we're building today is not just a coffee shop business. We're a people business serving coffee. But how did we get to that realization is, I think, two things, right? So let's maybe break it down into the elements of what today represent Lab. So if you take a step back, in terms of timing, out-of-home F&B consumption increased significantly post-COVID. And in F&B, coffee is the most consumed product and the fastest growing vertical. If we zoom in on Germany, which is the market that we are in today, Germany is the largest market in Europe for coffee, and 50% of Germans drink coffee on a daily basis, sometimes more than once a day. Fun fact that the largest coffee chain in Germany today is actually McCafe. And 70% of...
And the McCafe is so awful. I'm not sure. Who's drinking it, but yeah.
I think there's a reason why McCafe is so successful, right? Because 70% of coffee consumption in Germany, also in France for a fact, is on the go. Yeah. I think in France it's even higher for 80%. And it tells you what the mass market consumer is actually looking for, which is convenience, affordability, and accessibility. Yeah. So simply by McCafe being everywhere, accessible by a lot of people with a price point that is affordable, they're able basically to become the largest coffee chain in Germany today, even though their main product is not coffee. Yeah. And I think there is learnings to draw from, the market that we are in today. And I believe these are signs that there is a big opportunity to, one, digitize the space because it is primarily an offline market. Yeah. And two, the ability to build new and exciting products and develop a differentiated category in a very large market. Yeah. And I think whether you're a founder, whether you're an investor, this is exactly where you want to build because there is endless and massive potential. On the other hand, community-driven lifestyle businesses today are on the rise globally. We talked about Red Bull, which I think was a pioneer in that industry or in that vertical or in cultural marketing in general. But there's a lot more consumer brands that are focused on community today. Now, what does that mean? I think as consumers, we are connected to the products we consume. And coffee is a great example of that because of the frequency of how much you consume it. I drink a lot of coffee, maybe too much. But it's the one product.
You said you're on coffee number 6 today already,
I am in coffee number 6 today. I didn't want to share it, but thank you. So coffee is a great example because of the high consumption. And when you look at the options out there today, both in brick and mortar and in retail, it is extremely hard to find the brand that you can actually emotionally connect to, right? So if you look at a coffee shelf in a supermarket, I fall asleep. So on one hand, let's take physical businesses or brick and mortar businesses as an example, right? In terms of positioning of the market. So on one hand, you have the low end, low quality, and bad customer experience product. Usually it's standalone shops, no brand, no economies of scale, don't carry over, generation after generation, and often, shut down or close. And then on the other side of the market, you have the more commercial brands like Starbucks, as a good, global example. But also you have the specialty coffee chains that are much better quality, maybe a little bit more digitized, but long waiting lines and unaffordable for daily consumption. So what you're left with is a massive market in between today that is really uncatered for. And this is what next gen consumers want. They don't relate to existing brands anymore.
I mean, the last one they did was, in a way, the only one basically that really created this emotional positive responses with Starbucks.
Absolutely.
Right? And they kind of did it not through their coffee, but through providing a space, correct? They somehow lost the magic, obviously, but it shows you what's possible if you kind of provide more than just coffee, right?
I mean, I think we have to take a moment to give credit to the incumbents in any industry. I think they're a great example, and we draw a lot of inspiration from what they did, 100%. Even though we strive to beat them, right? We strive to build a better experience and as large of a business. Having said that, I think it's impressive what they built. And you said something extremely valuable. The way they did it is using space, right? So they created the third space. Why is that? Because at the time, without getting too philosophical, in that society, people wanted a place to congregate, right? Mm-hmm. They needed more human interaction. They wanted to sit somewhere, whether to work or hang out with their friends. And Starbucks created or filled the gap in that market that today, fast forward, they're not able to fill because consumer expectations or what customers and people and the community is looking for is different. So we're going from a third space into kind of a fifth space type of consumer proposition, which is more tailored to the on-the-go, but still very community focused. But the type of interaction that you do is no longer sitting on a laptop or for 3 hours having a conversation. It's because the nature of life is so much more speedy today and you have different things to do. You still want to grab a great cup of coffee. You still want to meet a friend for 20 minutes. It's more small format. It's more short format. It's a bit similar to the content that you consume on a daily basis on your phone. And I think being able to adapt that model today is a big part of the proposition that we are building. Yeah. And we will get to that. But maybe to just basically complete the idea here is that in order to fill that market in between, Lap is basically providing the affordable everyday routine. So high quality products at affordable prices become available to customers, matching it with a fun, vibrant, community focused brand that people relate to.
Yeah, cool. I mean, for those who have never been at a Lab Coffee, because obviously we can talk about it in business terms, which is I think also relevant, but it's really a vibe, right? So I think. There's always a line. Like what I like about it, there's always a line, but it's very efficient, very quick. Like you never wait more than 2-3 minutes. There's always the coolest people hanging out there. You have a changing menu. It's small, but still a cool place to hang. It's like kind of your what 50 years ago maybe was kind of the local bar where you had a drink or a beer. That's what, in our society, in our generation, hopefully Lab Coffee will be down the road, right? It's really amazing. How did you, it's not easy to create. How did you create this vibe?
I think there's a few different parts related to that. So maybe starting with the physical space that you mentioned earlier. So I think very early on, what we tried to do is get enough proof points of what is the model that we wanted to build. And we realized that this micro retail model with a strong brand is the future. Why? A couple of reasons. I think it's capital efficient, it's replicable, it's predictable, and it's the fastest way to actually build a household brand name. So starting with the brick and mortar proposition before we get into how we bring the cool people in.
Yeah.
Starting with a network of stores, we introduce our brand to as many customers as possible and offer products and experiences they like. So on one hand, this is why customers are coming in, because there is a product fit with the customer audience that we are serving. But what we try to do is build a much longer term relationship with our customers, right? So maybe remember one thing that I said is we try not to be transactional when it comes to the customer relationship that we build, but we want to be relationship focused when we talk to our customers, right? So once a customer comes into the store, buys their first drink, they sign up to our loyalty product. And from there, through our loyalty wallet, we ask them for feedback, which products they want, what do they want to see on the shelf, in the store, at home, and in supermarkets. And the ultimate goal is to actually make them a bigger part of the journey and build a large portfolio of products that they can find and afford everywhere, online and offline. And
so they feel they have like ownership, they feel like they're part of the product selection.
They're absolutely part of the product selection. And this is why the business is called Life Among People.
Yeah.
So even though we start with a physical retail space, what that effectively is doing to us, and we want to open 100 stores in the next 3 years in Germany.
How many stores do you have at the moment?
6, and 1 more coming live next month. And we keep iterating on the format of the stores. Yeah. Obviously, the first store I built myself. I should never do that again. And I think my team agrees. Over time, I think we can get a lot better and we can learn from the mistakes that we've done and we can improve the experience for the customer, because that's equally important, right? But the goal is not just to perfect the physical space. What we want to do is use brick and mortar to build this long-term relationship with our customers. And if we open 100 stores in Germany in a couple of years, we can acquire or build a relationship with millions of happy customers who will over time spend a share of their wallet on their favorite lab products, which will be hopefully a better alternative that is more affordable for them. That basically speaks their language because they are a part of the decision-making process there. So I give you an example. Do you have the Lab loyalty wallet?
Yes, of course.
After buying a couple of drinks at Lab, you will receive an email, right?
Yeah.
Asking you for feedback on certain things. So let's take this as an example. The day we want to introduce our own coffee beans to the market, you will receive multiple questions. One of them could be the color of the packaging. Do you want it to be red or blue? Where do you want your beans to come from? Would you like them grinded or whole? And this basically makes you a much bigger part of the experience and educates us. We are using this data to basically be better informed and create products that we know, customers actually want. So it makes our life easier. So we don't have to experiment and try 20 different products and maybe burn cash on that process.
Yeah.
And for you as a customer, you're pretty much getting exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And this is the journey that we are trying to build and create with this 360-degree touch point. Because with every single touch point with the customer today, they are becoming a part of the process.
And it's I think harder said than done because everyone wants to create a community. But I think with Lab, you feel that it's in the name, it's part of the DNA. It just comes natural, and I think that's what it's hard to put in words, but that's what creates the secret sauce, right? Like if someone's out there and who wants to build a great community, what would you say are kind of the steps that or the secret sauces that they have to follow?
I think it starts with a shift in mentality because the business world is transactional. And I preach this a lot, and probably a lot of people in my life and my network and my team are bored of listening to this, but you need to be relationship driven and not transactional. By being inclusive and bringing customers into that value proposition, you create this power of community because people don't feel that they are taken advantage of. They feel that they are actually getting value of these interactions. I'm not saying that everything we do is perfect, but the intention of it is actually meant to somehow improve your day a little bit. And if we improve your day a little bit, multiple times a week, multiple times a month, the connection that you build with this brand is different. Yeah. Then when we invite you to a running event or to a collaboration that we're doing with a really cool sports brand, you show up, you're there, you benefit from the community and the people around it, and you potentially make friends and have a good time. And that's a bit drawing back to this bar experience, the neighborhood bar that you're creating today. Yeah. When you look at how I designed the brand early on, having a lab in each neighborhood is a very common theme where, of course, you want to bring a lot of value to the neighborhood, but at the same time, become a much bigger part of people's daily lives and daily choices. But the bigger question is, how do you do 100 stores in 3 years? It's easy to say that. And this is where the hard work really starts. We spend a lot of time really trying to figure out what is that business model? How do we make it viable? Because you want profitable locations, you want efficiency and speed. You want a model that works in any market circumstance, that is primarily hinging on low costs and good execution. And that sounds like a really hard formula to execute. So we ended up, after multiple iterations, with a great team that we have today. We decided to focus on micro retail as the real estate model that we go with. That decision-making process early on, even before kind of starting the business, was this journey that I'm explaining, is figuring out what would the first store actually look like. And ultimately what we landed on is small real estate with an average size of 30 to 50 square meters, which brings a lot of the advantages that I talked about earlier on, which is this capital efficiency by keeping spaces low cost, easy to set up in high traffic areas. We're able to reduce our expenses and ultimately pass that attractive price on to the customer.
I think that's also a bit underestimated. We talk about community building, but it makes a difference if I have 2-3 coffees a day for the average person. If you pay €6 or $6 per coffee versus €3, like in your case, right? So I think plus the loyalty card and discounts down the road. So I think that really makes a difference.
And this is where the longer term relationship driven thinking comes in, because we can of course monetize a lot more from existing customers. But what we want to do over time is expand the portfolio of services and the products that we do, even potentially beyond coffee, while retaining this customer. So the customer today that is spending on average €20 a month at Lab could potentially in 3 years spend a lot more. And this is what we're basing our business model on.
By buying your coffee brand in a supermarket, or
it can go in different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're talking about merch. We're talking about retail products. We're talking about potentially subscription products where you walk into any lab at any point in time, grab your drink and leave. It's basically, subsidizing pre-ordering solutions and the ability to get exactly what you need faster and at better quality than before. And this is only possible by compounding the size of the community. So without having a lot of people that come into the stores and order a lot of coffee, we won't be able to cover our costs. So there is this also pressure to have this operational excellency, to be able to always produce a high throughput of drinks every single day with a great customer service without messing up the ultimate product for the customer.
Which is, I think, an interesting way. So some people from the outside just look at it and say, oh, it's a coffee shop, right? But the right way to think about it is you're building a platform that happens to start with physical locations, micro retail, as you said, that happens to start with coffee and adjacent products in the first step. But basically, what it is a platform with a strong community that you involve and that you take on a journey, right? And I think that gives you plenty more opportunities than if you would be just building a coffee shop for $5, right?
I would say this is very well said.
Nice, yeah. And maybe just a follow-up question, because obviously you talked about 100 locations, and at the same time you talked about about authenticity, about kind of involving the community. So you kind of have almost the contradiction of, with 100 locations, you want to have a very consistent experience, right? All the big, food and beverage brands preach consistency in terms of products, in terms of service. But then you want to allow for some space to localize, right, to the local neighborhood. So have you solved this already, or what's your thinking around that?
This is where the second part of the equation comes in, and this is what we're spending a lot of time and effort on today with the team, to try to understand how we can actually scale the community side of the business. Mm-hmm. And I think we have a really clear idea of how to do that. But obviously it brings a lot of complexity when you expand within a city and also beyond that city. You need to be able to replicate that feeling that you have, that you mentioned earlier on in your opening, about what you feel when you walk into a lab. And I think this is something that needs to be translated as a brand, but also as a culture through the team that implements and activates the cities that we are in. So we're building a very similar structure to what Red Bull built. Yeah. And I didn't answer your question because you asked me, what did I actually do at Red Bull? So I joined that business as a student, and they have a program called Student Brand Manager, where they basically recruit fun people that represent the brand to basically create their marketing activations, to host their events, to promote the product, and to basically groom the people. And this is effectively what we are trying to do and what we will do, right? Whether it's event teams, whether it's community managers, whether it's even local tastemakers or influencers that love the brand so much that they want to be part of it. This is the community that we are trying to build and spread across different cities. And I strongly believe that, we're a brand and a community first that strives to give customers the best platform and products to match their lifestyle. And if people feel connected to that proposition, by definition, it will be an extension of what they promote.
Yeah, so tell me about some of the most surprising marketing successful campaigns. Yeah,
without spilling the beans too much, which it's really one of my favorite that I find really funny, is early days activation as well for the pricing. Because I think one of the immediate messages that when we went into a train station where customers are slightly more, expect or they appreciate more friendly prices, we wanted to communicate our prices a bit more clearly. And we staged a robbery on social media. We staged a robbery on social media where someone broke into the store and basically stole the coffee and ran away. And we had someone from our team chase them. So we filmed that. And ultimately, when they caught the person that is doing the robbery, they told them, man, it's not worth it. It's only 2.5 euros. and from there, basically, we started promoting the prices. So it's one of the value propositions that we went to market first with before we focused on the community side and so on, just to be much more clearer to mass market what we're bringing to the customer.
Such an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that. So we talked about community building and what are some of the things that you've seen work best? I mean, you briefly mentioned running clubs that are always taking lab coffees as a starting point and ending point. You do probably some sort of brand collaborations. Like, walk us through some of the things and initiatives that worked out well for building communities.
So Life Among People is a lifestyle brand that is divided into multiple verticals. We have sports, we have music and fashion, we have F&B. And everything we do and everyone we ultimately interact with, tastemakers, micro-influencers, or brands, is directly connected to one of these buckets. And this is how we run our marketing and our content calendar and our activation and partnership calendar. So in short, we basically give a platform to all these stakeholders, similarly our baristas, to basically engage with the brand in their own world. In a way. So we plug into what they do. And we simply enable them to do that through, social media, events, fun activations. And that opens the door to a great local community who are now promoting us just because it has this compounding effect. So a lot of these brand partnerships that we do is, in fact, providing value, whether you're a running club or whether you're a fashion brand, to the customers that you are hosting today. And that has a dual effect. In a way, we're basically filling a gap or providing a service to the brands. Let's name a few, from Adidas to High Snobiety to On Running to Ante Berlin to Lululemon. We're basically providing a service and a product for their customers. And ultimately, those customers are becoming integrated into the lab world, and they basically ultimately show up to our stores. So that success is measured with our ability to increase the touch points with customers, to create an everyday contact with the brand, whether it's consuming the coffee or the content, or whether becoming part of the events that we do.
Nice. So I think that's all very impressive, and I feel people are like sitting around saying, "Oh yeah, I can probably close Adidas or Lululemon." But how the hell did you manage to land Kanye West? Like, how did he end up? He was in Berlin, basically passing by and just grabbing a lab coffee. Like, what's the story there?
It was in fact our launch event. So it was the first official day of the lab opening, and we had blocked the entire street, and we basically organized a last-minute block party, and we had, I think, over 400 to 500 people showing up. It was extremely difficult with a very small team to pull off, And I had no consciousness of what was going around there because I was running around making sure that everyone is happy and things are not breaking. And I think it was, on one hand, pure coincidence and chance, like every other encounter that we have with the great people that come to the store, but also the power of our community drawing attention to the things that we do. So it ultimately always goes back to our fan base and the people that rotate around the brand. And through them, we've been able to host incredible people, tastemakers, influencers, some celebrities as well in the store that are showing up there occasionally without us even knowing. And the funny thing is that we hear from the baristas, obviously they look up to these people and they love them. And every couple of months we have this great big team gathering where we exchange some stories. And I love to hear the stories. Who's been to Lab and what they order. And I can tell you some of those drinks are quite funky.
Yeah. So what are some of the most in fashion drinks these days? So obviously, because you have the standard list of drinks, right? So coffee, matcha, all of those things. But what are some of the most demanded, sought after drinks that are special?
Yeah. So the way we design our menu is obviously continuing to honor the classics in the coffee industry, which is your espresso, americano, and your typical cappuccino and flat white. But also at the same time, we offer seasonal drinks that based on the season, every 3 months we refresh. We bring in new innovative drinks to our customers. On one side, following trends in the market and really understanding what customers want, and also, getting signals and recommendations from our current customers today on what they want to consume. And at the same time, ensuring that we stand out in what some consider a competitive market. Mm-hmm. The best performing products today is, and usually that pattern often repeats, is always the cappuccino. It's always been the most popular drink.
Wow.
And directly after that, we see 2 or 3 stars that are always shining in that mix. So the first drink that I introduced to Lab was the cold brew, which is what I drink every day, multiple times a day. Having spent a lot of time in New York, it was, the coffee that I consumed the most, or the type of coffee that I consumed the most. It's basically like a cold filter coffee. And somehow realized very quickly in Berlin that you can't easily find cold brew. And this was, for a very long time, one of the best sellers. Mm-hmm. And then, in addition,
because you are drinking it 6 times a day, yeah?
Because I drink it 6 times a day, it probably helps.
Yeah.
And then straight after that, it was our coconut matcha.
Okay.
And that immediately stood out and was actually...
Which I can confirm, it's amazing, yeah.
Agreed. I think it's one of the best drinks that we have as well. And then the extension of that is always something either related to cold brew or related to the matcha drink. So what we try to do is build on the base drink. So we take a cold brew and we add certain types of foams to it. Mm-hmm. We take our matcha and basically...
Pistachios, I think.
Pistachio totally matcha is a very good example. Currently, the pumpkin spice matcha is extremely popular. And we always try to bring different mixes of flavors together while maintaining very low calorie and low sweetness in the drink as much as possible to ensure that it's still healthy. One trend that we've been seeing a lot lately, and also customers are requesting it, is the functional drinks, which we recently added to the menu, that are slowly now gaining popularity. I think we've noticed that people want less sugary drinks, people want to be on the healthy side.
So you're taking basically the opposite stance of Starbucks, where you have a lot of cream and sugar, and which basically everything evil in there, and you're going to this lifestyle healthy direction, right?
Exactly, and saying that there is a way to have interesting drinks or more flavorful drinks without using too much syrups and so on. Yeah. And when it comes to the functionals, I think what people want, because they consume those drinks multiple times a day, they want the health benefits of what's in them, and that's what we're trying now.
And was it proteins or collagen?
Exactly. So we're talking collagen, protein, and mushroom extracts. And they were extremely well received. This is the first time we expand that side of the menu, and it's something that we want to continue doing.
Yeah, amazing. So walk me through kind of technology, because obviously, there's a lot of benefits that you can achieve, but you also don't want to use technology or apply technology or an app or whatever just for the sake of doing it. So how does it weave into the overall strategy of building out Lab as an authentic brand and a big community of friends?
So the 3 verticals that we want to focus on, one is the physical stores, which is expanding our product to as many customers as possible. 2 is creating a better customer experience. And 3 is a large portfolio of our own products. When we talk about the second vertical, the purpose of improving customer experience is making the ordering process more enjoyable, maybe easier and faster, but also enabling our baristas to become more productive and reducing the amount of labor that they put into creating a drink. Especially if they're getting 500 to 1,000 customers a day, it could become labor intensive. And this, for me, when you ask me about technology is nothing but a tool to improve the overall experience for all the stakeholders in the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Including customers and baristas. What we will focus on, or what we started focusing on very early days, is the loyalty piece. So getting as many customers onboarded to our loyalty product, to our loyalty wallet, which customers absolutely love. And we want to continue innovating on that product. So making it more exciting, making it more visual, displaying the value that customers are getting a little bit better, right? So we've only been in the business for 1 year. We haven't had the capacity or the time or the resources to actually invest in that particular vertical. And this is what today or going forward, we want to invest a lot of time and effort in, is designing a loyalty product that at the core hosts all of our customers, and from there extend it into pre-ordering solutions, into in-store pre-ordering screens, making that shopping journey a lot more exciting, a lot more delightful, but also what happens post-shopping journey, right? This is also an equally important part, because we're not transactional, we're relationship driven. So when the customer gets their drink and pays, the experience or the relationship does not end there. So this continuation and relationship is in fact built within that loyalty product. So we have a great vision of what that product represents, but there are problems in the industry today. That is probably the reason why 90% of the industry is still primarily offline.
Yeah.
So it's a completely disintegrated back-end tech infrastructure. So if you are running a very small, what seems to be an asset-light retail F&B business, you're in fact using way too many tools to be ordered to become to be ordered to deliver that experience to the customer. So what we ultimately want to build, and what we are now trying to piece together, is what the operating system of an asset-light coffee shop looks like. And we're focusing a lot on doing the back-end integrations today to make our team and our business very efficient. And as soon as that is done, the data layer is built to innovate on the front end or on the customer experience itself.
So let's talk briefly about some of the marketing campaigns that worked out amazingly well, that you underestimated, or that you didn't expect to perform so well. So what are kind of the things that you felt, wow, I never thought that this would work that well?
As a brand, and it's part of our DNA, we want to create change. And I think you can't create change without disruption. So our ideas are often not common or not normal. And as much as we, want to stay within the law, we tend to push the barrier a little bit. 2 of the things that we did very early on, actually, and caused a lot of commotion in the coffee industry, where a lot of the current players in the market actually misunderstood and thought that they were being targeted. When in fact, our launching campaign for the train station kiosks, that was the second store that we launched, we basically staged a manifestation or a protest. And that was, I think, almost a year ago. And it was basically our team. It was our first or a small team of baristas that we already had, friends of friends. And we just basically begged them to come and stand with us in the cold and hold these signs that said, "Stop paying €4 for a coffee." And the reason why we did that was because that week, or maybe a few days before that, Starbucks had just opened across the street. So we wanted to basically target or maybe kind of make that, make a little bit more fun of the idea that, the largest coffee chain in the world opened up right across the street from us with this tiny kiosks. And, there was a bit of a backlash in Berlin, on LinkedIn, in some of the media outlets.
What's not to like about this campaign?
I think it was very misunderstood for some valid reasons.
Yeah.
I think people think that a more affordable coffee means that we are, excuse my language, screwing someone in the supply chain, which is absolutely not the case, because we pay fairly. Every single stakeholder.
Higher prices even.
We pay an extremely high price because our coffee is specialty coffee. Yeah. It is not a low quality product. Yeah. It's actually a high quality product, despite the fact that we don't promote it primarily as the main value proposition, but it's still an expensive or not cheap product that we serve to customers. And therefore, everyone assumed that we are potentially bypassing the farmers or potentially, skipping, hurting the supply chain somehow, and basically trying to hurt existing current players in the market, which is obviously not the case. It was a guerrilla marketing stunt. It was tailored towards a commercial chain. And those who actually understood what we were trying to do took it in a really funny way, because it was also at the same time when people were going crazy around the price of a doner in Berlin, which went from a couple of euros to 7 euros. And there was a lot of commotion around it in the media. So it was a perfect timing for us. It worked extremely well. The customers that really understood what we were trying to do loved the idea.
It's a human right to cheap doner and good coffee at good prices.
Exactly.
Ask the Italians. In Italy, it's a big thing if the espresso price actually goes from €1 now to 140 or so. I mean, they want to restrict the price by law almost, right?
Exactly. And this is why we want to keep the prices of what we consider a commodity, which is the classic coffee products, basic extremely coffee, low. And then we can innovate or potentially raise a little bit the prices of more special drinks, but at least you're getting a lot more value in return. And you have a choice. You could get your classic drink for a super affordable price and high quality, or you can go for maybe something a bit more fancy or functional. And then as an extension to that campaign, for 4 days in a row, I was waking up at 4 a.m. with one person. We designed a banner that we wanted to basically climb on the train station and basically throw it or hang it somewhere on the train station and basically have it dangling, to even put more focus on why we are doing that campaign, to explain how we're basically innovating on that price of the coffee. Unfortunately, 4 days in a row, there was police. There was there was basically the train operators. There was, because you had to basically jump across the train tracks. You had to climb somewhere. It was not a very smart idea, and obviously it was a flop. We still have all the videos, but for 4 or 5 days in a row, I was waking up at 4 a.m., going to that train station, trying to replicate that. And
you can see the old Red Bull school with your ideas,
and
at least you didn't jump out of space, right?
Not yet. Not yet.
So there's I think we'll definitely watch out to what the next big marketing campaigns are, but I think those are exactly things that make a brand special, right? Having those unique, convention defying marketing campaigns, or just positions. I think that's what makes it special. Yeah,
fully agree. And we finally have a platform that enables us to be more creative than your typical traditional business. And I think that's something we'd love to take a bit more advantage of.
Cool, Ralph. You've seen so many cool trends in the marketing space and with consumer brands. What are kind of the one or two things that you really look up to? What are kind of things where you say, "Wow, why didn't I come up with that?"
I think a lot of the brands that I, aspire and look to are, companies like Red Bull, Blue Bottle, Liquid Death, Satisfy Running, that is today changing a bit how we perceive running brands. Trader Joe's, which still has the same prices that they had back in the 90s. I think there's a lot of inspiration to draw from there. Maybe one really great example in marketing is Liquid Death, which effectively is a company that repackaged water in a can and sold it for a higher price. It's basically like, charging people for air.
Yeah.
And obviously it's, a refined quality of water, at least what they claim. But if you look at all their advertising and if you look at all their campaigns, it's basically not focused at all on what the product actually is, but creating entertainment that folks can consume, that people would look at, regardless of what they serve, regardless of what's in that can. Your eyes are peeled and focused on that video for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And I think if we talk about the future of consumer marketing today, there's a few things that we need to keep in mind. That business is show business, and all brands going forward need to be content creators. Content is ultimately how brands influence culture and how you can get closer to a consumer. So brands' products are going to be discovered, shared, talked about, and bought is more important than the product itself. How you do it is effectively the way that you hook the consumer. So that story, the narrative, the entertainment is all part of the new brand management framework. So we are very focused, or at least we want to learn and get better at how we do this creative storytelling across all of our channels. Some cheeky, short format, pop culture bits that our customers relate to, and over time, hopefully continue improving on that format, to keep the customer entertained. Whether it's a copy or a social media reel, everything communicates and everything is content. And I think this is really the future of consumer marketing. And that's why I love companies like Red Bull, companies like Liquid Death. I'm not drinking Red Bull since many, many years. I still go on their YouTube channels and I watch every single video.
Amazing. I mean, those are really good examples and anecdotes. And actually one thing to add on Liquid Death, I think I've seen an interview with the founder who basically said the main reason why people drink Liquid Death instead of other water is because all the other water is not cool. Like if you go to a party and you don't want to drink beer or a cocktail and you have like a water bottle, everyone's like, what the hell is going on? But now you have like a really cool designed can and no one's asking any more questions. So I think kind of it's a different way of positioning what you're selling. And I think they almost created a new category for water, which is cool water. Yeah, it doesn't even have to taste differently. It's just the packaging. So I think that's a really good example of yours. Yeah. And hopefully that's, we'll see some cool new products that redefine, any category that you want to redefine within the lab universe.
That's exactly the goal, and that's what we're striving for.
Cool, Ralph. I can't. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what's going to happen over the next few quarters and years with your company and the brand. But I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of amazing things that are on your roadmap. So thanks for coming over, and
thank you for having me.
Looking forward to the future. We'll do this in 2 years and see what you've come up with. Yeah.
Hopefully, the next episode will be in a lab coffee in one of our locations.
Yes, we'll definitely do that. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.